Hello everyone, I am Taylor and I garden on 27 acres in rural Wisconsin, Zone 4. Today I'm going to go through part 3 of my series on winter sowing. Today we're going to plant our containers up. The first video of the series covered seed selection and making sure that you are selecting the correct seeds for the winter sowing method. It will make it a lot easier and you'll be a lot more successful if you do that. Part 2 covered the vessel or container selection. There are a lot of options out there that are great, and it's about what's going to work best for you. So check those 2 videos out if you haven't yet. The most important thing in this step of planting your seeds is when to do it. So there are things that you can plant that need that cold stratification period, and it will vary per seed. Some are just a few weeks, some are a little bit longer. So make sure what you're planting is going to get that cold stratification period outside, which is one of the benefits of winter sowing. So the other thing is that you can probably do these, at least in Wisconsin, up to March, because we're still cold and it's still giving those seedlings a head start to be winter sowed over direct sowed. The first thing to consider beyond your seeds and containers is what soil you're going to use for your seed starting. I've been using this Pro Mix all-purpose for just about everything. It is an all-purpose mix and it's been working great for me. You can use seed starting mix. I've seen people just using garden soil. I think it's about what's available to you and trialing what's going to work best for you. But really, we're just trying to get these seeds to germinate and grow on a few real leaves, so they don't need extra nutrients or anything like that from a soil. To prepare my soil, I am going to wet it. Now, we want this to be pretty wet in comparison to other seed starting soil moisture requirements. We want the soil to stay wet until the seeds germinate, which here in Wisconsin, this is going to freeze immediately once it goes outside, which is good because I won't have to keep it watered as much. Now, the winter sowing method is not just a set it and forget it type deal. That is what I thought it was the first year that I did it. And although I got a lot of things to germinate, a lot of them perished because they either got too cold after that, too hot, I didn't water them enough. There's still little live seedlings that need care. So I'm just going to continue to adding water to wet this down. And we're getting kind of close on some of this. So if you look like on this part, we want it to hold together, maybe a little bit of water come out, not too much though. That's kind of where I dumped the water. They're all mixed in. Let's see. How about this? So we get a tiny bit of water to come out. It holds together pretty well. So that's the consistency I'm looking for this. It's pretty wet. This year, I believe I've narrowed my seeds down enough that I'm only going to use my clear tote with the seed trays in the bottom. So each one of these seed trays is going to get a different seed. So I'll have 4 of each of the things that I'm starting. I'm going to start with that and see what else I can't live without winter sowing. I have my seedling trays here. So these are all separated already. And I'm just going to fill them, lightly push in the soil and get them back. So that they're full, but not too full, that they can hold a little water in the top. Because these will mostly be getting top watered in that tote. So I'm going to fill all of these up and then we'll start planting our seeds. We prepared this milk jug container together in the previous video, And I decided I'm just going to pot this one up too, in case you're using this method. There is, obvious benefits on cost with this, and it also does take a really good amount of soil in the bottom with the depth. So these are really good containers to use as well. So there we go. That one's all ready too. We have finally made it to the best part, the planting. In this milk jug, I'm going to plant these purple coneflower seeds from M.I. Gardner. So important information that you can get from the seed packet is right here, seed depth. This is really the only thing that we're going to need to know on here. These are going to go out, obviously, when it's still cold. So the rest of this is kind of irrelevant. You can see you're supposed to direct sow them after last frost, but using the winter sowing method is going to give them a head start. So a couple things to note here is we are going to obviously plant them to depth, but the spacing on them, we can plant them a lot closer than what it says on the packet because we're just getting tiny seedlings and the roots are not going to be fully developed. So we're going to plant these a lot closer together and we can get a lot more of them in here. Now, if you are planting multiple things, you can share these containers. There's plenty of space in here for many different plants. Just make sure that you label them correctly because it's going to be hard to tell them apart especially if you're new at gardening, just based on those first few leaves. Okay, so I'm just going to go around and I'm going to stay a little bit from the edge because you still want the roots to have enough space to grow. So I'm just going to poke every so often here, a little 1/2 inch deep hole. And you can also just leave the soil a little bit low, put your seeds down and then cover them. You can also plant these a lot thicker, which is called the hunk of seedlings method, which is very popular for winter sowing. You can also plant more than one seed per hole and thin them out or transplant them early so that they don't have, you could still separate them at that point. Just going to get a couple here in each one. I have a lot of these seeds. I might as well use them. All right, so we got them all planted, and this is what those seed looks like. They're pretty cute. All right, and then I'm just going to cover them like normal. And then I'm also actually going to mist these a little bit so that they're nice and wet for when they unfreeze and get ready to germinate. Now we get snow here, so the snow will go in this top here, which is really handy. I've also packed snow in there to keep these watered, and that has been a good method as well. Once it gets a little bit warmer, it's very important to keep them watered. All right, I'm going to, I need to make a label first and put it in here with them. I found the little label that my husband made for me with the 3D printer. These are awesome. So if you can get your hands on some of these, they work really well. Otherwise, garden marker. So I'm going to label this in here just as a double layer because I'm also going to label the outside of this. So I'm going to go grab the tape and I'm going to tape this up. All right, this might be a little bit hard to see with the camera and me trying to work around it. All right, so I start at my hinge point there, and really you just want to make sure that you're kind of splitting the difference on your cut. Okay, and I'm going to do a little bit of overlap on the back side here so that I get tape on tape. So here's what I did that you probably couldn't see much of, and I'm going to try to not tip this too much so that I'm not losing my seeds all over. So I'm just going to rub the tape on here, make sure it's all stuck on, and this guy's all set. Besides, I'm going to write his name on here, and I'm going to point this name here to the north because it will provide a little bit of sun protection and hopefully keep that on there longer. So this one is ready to go outside. As soon as you get those seeds in that ground or in that soil, get them outside because you don't want them sprouting before you put them out. I'm going to start my tote here with Bells of Ireland. I think these are the coolest seeds. They're like triangles, but they're cylinders. I have 7 seeds, and I got my tag here to label. And these containers are pretty big. And these are also surface sow. So I'm actually going to put 2 in each cell. Kind of opposite corners deal. And I'm just going to lightly push them in, even though it's surface. So the rain and stuff coming through here is a little bit violent sometimes. So we don't want to lose those seeds. Here's the seed packet from the Bells of Ireland. They're a really cool green filler for bouquets, but they're pretty hard to start. So fingers crossed. So as I'm planting my tote up, I'm not going to go through every seed that I'm putting in here, but I am going to highlight ones that are different or special. So this bachelor's button has been an excellent performer with this method for me for 3 years now. They're just so fun, and it produces flowers super early. So I'm definitely excited to be doing this one again here. The blue color I've had good luck with, and I have a red as well that I had really good luck with. So these seeds are really interesting too. They have like a little tassel at the top. And I was able to seed save some from my garden last year. So these go 1/4 inch in here. I'm just going to press them in, and then I'm going to cover them up a little bit. Poppies are another great one that I've had really great success with the winter sowing method. This one in particular is absolutely gorgeous, and I even seed saved from them. This packet actually has been in the freezer since last year, so I'm hoping that they're still viable. Okay, poppy seeds are tiny, and they're surface sow. Just gonna sprinkle them over here. And I'm doing this somewhat generously. If I get a large amount to germinate, that's great, and we'll thin them then. All right. Hank just wanted to say hi. Apparently he likes winter sowing too. I am going to water the poppies in separately here. Running out of water. Just because they are surface sown, and well, they're probably all gone now. Gonna get more water first. But I'm gonna water them in just to get them set in where they need to be. These are the most microscopic seeds that I've seen to date. These are Corabel's heuchera. They're so tiny. I have not had luck germinating these yet, but I'm hoping winter sowing is the answer. As I've been going through the season I'm planting, I'm doing a lot of perennials this year, and a lot of the seeds, even though they're a little bit bigger, it says that light aids in the germination. which means you don't want to cover it with soil. So just a reminder to make sure that you're reading your packets to make sure to cover them or to not cover them. I have all of my seeds planted. Next, I'm going to go through and gently water everything. And I'm going to give it a pretty good soaking because I want this to freeze and retain moisture. I don't want it to dry out because I need to keep it moist for them to germinate at the right time at the right temperature, which is the whole benefit of the winter sowing method. And next, I'm going to go show you where I'm going to put this in my yard and where you should consider putting it in your yard. Here is where my seeds are going to rest. This is my little cut flower garden here. It's fenced in, so nothing's going to mess with it, like the dogs or anything. It's even ground, so they're not going to tip over. Now, if you have a lot of snow, you're going to want to dig down a little bit just to make sure that they're on the ground, that they're not floating on the snow, that they're going to tip over at some point. So this is also somewhere that's very visible for me. I'm going to see this daily and remember that I need to take care of these little guys. So through the winter here, you're going to want to make sure that they're still moist. You don't really want them to dry out at this point, just because your soil will become hydrophobic and it will be really hard to get that initial moisture back in your soil. I've got all of the labels pointed north to protect them from the sun a little bit. So once these start to germinate is when you really want to keep an eye on them daily. You want to make sure that they're watered. They dry out pretty quickly being in these little greenhouses. That's the number one mistake that I made my first time. Number two is to uncover them on warm days. And now that means, it might mean like 60-degree days, because these are little greenhouses and it will just bake your seedlings and they will not survive. The other thing to keep in mind is really cold nights. Once they germinated, they're not going to survive out here with no protection. So you can either throw a blanket over them, bring them into your garage for a night, something to protect them, just like they're a plant growing outside. They may be perennials, they may be, tougher seeds, but they're still going to be affected by those super cold nights. Oh, and our motion light went out. So I guess that's time to wrap up. So thank you for joining, and I'll be doing a part 4 to show you guys what I'm going through once these seeds germinate this spring. And take care.